big mouth.
Everybody do the flop!
Have you ever watched a harem anime before and wondered what it'd be like if the main character was blind? Well, if you have, then H2O Footprints in the Sand is the anime for you. It's a fairly old anime that not a lot of people talk about or have even seen. I originally watched it about 8 years ago, thought it was decent, and gave it a strong 6 out of 10. Now, how does it hold up 16 years later? Well, there's only one way to find out.
Bitch.
So, the anime begins with our main character Hirose, who just moved to a village, and like I've already said, he's blind. He can't see anything. He walks around with a walking stick, and everyone has to help him do various things, so his life kinda sucks. He goes to school where he meets the village chief's granddaughter, Hinata, and no, not that one. He also sees Hayami, who's from a family that everyone in the village hates. Her parents were rich doctors that overpriced their medicine and wouldn't give them to any of the villagers unless they paid for it. However, many of the villagers weren't rich and couldn't afford to pay for it. Some actually died because of this, so they all came together, burned Hayami's house down, which killed everyone except for her. But even though Hayami herself didn't do anything wrong, all the villagers hate her because her family were big dumb poopy heads. Anyway, there's not too much to say about the first episode. It introduces all the main characters and shows how Hirose, but most importantly Hayami, are struggling to live their lives. The episode ends with a girl named Otoha, who's a spirit or a ghost girl or some shit. She kisses Hirose and then...
Up your ass.
I can see clearly now.
So, after Otoha kissed Hirose, he can now see again. So,
What the fuck?
I don't even know what to say. It's insanely dumb that Hirose can see again, but at the same time, I feel bad that he wasn't able to see for a good couple years of his life. I wouldn't mind this too much if this happened later on in the anime, or if it was even how the series ended. It would have been nice and satisfying to see Hirose finally be able to see after 12 full episodes. But no, instead, he can now see for the rest of the series, which again, is really dumb, but more importantly, a big wasted opportunity. Having the main character of a harem, or any anime for that matter, be blind is interesting, and I can't think of any other show that's like this. Yes, there are obviously blind characters in other shows, but they're always minor side characters that don't really get to do too much. That's why I was immediately hooked on the series, since again, having its main character be blind is interesting and distinct. I guess the reason the show ditches this idea so early on is because Hirose wouldn't be able to do too much. Yes, not being able to see is extremely inconvenient, but Hirose was still able to do things such as make friends with many of the characters quickly. Writing the series around Hirose being blind would be more difficult, but the creator was the one who made him blind in the first place. This confuses and irritates me so much, but not as much as this. Come on, you really couldn't have made it?
3:28 a.m.
Anyway, that was the first episode, and besides the extremely mixed ending, it's mostly not half bad, and the same can be said for the rest of the series. Now that Hirose can see again, he dedicates his time to trying to make Hayami and Hinata happy, since he's a good guy. Like I said, Hayami is hated by everyone in the village, so Hirose befriends her and tries to get others to do the same too. Hinata treats her like shit, but that's only because her grandfather is a gigantic fucking asshole who I wanted to punch in the face. He manipulates everyone in the village into hating Hayami and forbids Hinata from being friends with her, even though they were friends in the past. Hirose later finds this out, which is why he then helps the two of them become friends again. So yeah, this is mainly what the anime is about. Hirose spends all his time trying to fix Hayami and Hinata's problems, and for the most part, it's good. It reminds me a lot of two of my favorite anime, Canon and Clannad. In them, their main characters go around their town and help others with their problems. Most of the arcs last about 4 episodes or so, and many of them are fun, dramatic, and very satisfying to watch. H2O is similar to these shows, except there's one major difference. Instead of having about 4 or 5 main arcs, there's really only 2 or I guess 3 arcs, but we'll get to that later. Most of the show focuses on Hirose helping both Hayami and Hinata, and this takes up more or less the first 10 episodes. There are other side characters that get attention throughout the show, but they really don't matter all that much. For example, there's episode 6, which focuses on a side character named Yui. The episode is about Yui, but all the other mainline characters still get a good amount of attention too. It's unlike Canon and Clannad, where their arcs are heavily centered on one specific character, although that isn't inherently a bad thing, it's just different. This does, however, bring me to one of the best aspects of the show, which is how focused it is on its 3 main characters. The entire show centers around Hirose, Hayami, and Hinata, and it rarely seems to care about any of its other characters. This is good, since it means we get attached to its main cast easier and quicker than in other shows that have a larger cast. This was definitely the right decision to make, especially since the anime is only 12 episodes long. If we got 5 or 6 arcs that focus on 3 other side characters that don't really matter, I probably wouldn't have ended up enjoying the series.
How it feels to chew 5 gum. Stimulate your senses.
Anyway, since there's really only 2 main girls, it's kinda difficult to call this a harem, which is the main reason why I'm even reviewing it. Obviously Hayami and eventually Hinata like Hirose, but that's really it. Yui might like him, although I think she's fine with anyone impregnating her. Otoha likes him, I guess, but she's also a ghost girl, which means she's, you know. So technically speaking, this does pass the harem test, but it really doesn't feel like one. It's much more of a drama romance. Anyway, I said I mostly enjoyed the anime, and that's because there's some minor and one notable problem. Although a lot of the show is good, there's a few episodes that aren't so great.
Yo, Applejack. You alright?
Episode 4 is basically the typical beach episode, which centers around Hamaji and Yuki, both of which I don't really care for. Yuki is annoying, and her older sister—
Excuse me, it's ma'am.
I mean brother is forgettable, except for the fact that he cross-dresses. Let's just say it's a good thing I didn't go on Rule 34 before this. Even if Yuki and Hamaji were decent characters, I would still be bothered that Hayami isn't in the episode besides the last minute. It's jarring going from the first 3 episodes to this, even though it makes sense why she wouldn't be here with everyone else. It's basically filler, although the last minute is important, so you can't really skip it. It's not a bad episode or anything, just pretty forgettable. Episode 8, on the other hand, sucks orangutan testicles. The entire episode takes place in a dream, and it's all just a bunch of random nonsense. Normally I like dumb humor like this, but this doesn't fit the series at all. It's so out of place, and it's extremely jarring seeing this after the first 7 episodes. There's some funny and fan service moments during the show, but they're few and far between. Again, most of the show is a serious drama with some romance, harem, and comedy. Now the thing is, this might have worked as a bonus OVA episode, but even so, I still don't think it would. There are some funny moments in it, but there's also parts that just aren't, which is why it ended up being boring. Also, this wouldn't work as an OVA since the last couple minutes are important, since it's the last time Otoha gets to talk with Hirose. After this, she's no longer in the show because my name is Jeff. After episode 8, we get to the last arc, which focuses mainly on Hayami and Hirose. The 2 of them confess to each other and they then kiss, but that's not where the series ends, even though it probably could have. Hayami finally asks Hirose what happened to his parents, which he answers by saying
Suicide is badass.
But that's not all, because we then find out that the one who made her commit Sudoku was Hayami's parents. This obviously bothers Hirose a lot, since all he can think about now is— Anyway, this causes him to beat the shit out of Hayami, which is hard to take seriously, probably because the animation is so bad. Look at this, those punches are so slow and weak, they look more like a love tap if anything. Hayami is fine, although her arm and eye are clearly damaged a bit. However, the one who isn't fine is Hirose, because it turns out that this entire time he's been imagining being able to see again. What the fuck am I even supposed to think of this? You're telling me that everything we've seen from episode 2 up until now has all been in Hirose's head? You're telling me that he just imagined walking around without his cane and more importantly by himself this entire time? Does this mean Otoha never existed and she was basically Hirosei's imaginary friend too? I'm so confused but also irritated since again, this was a big wasted opportunity for the show. Hirosei being blind is interesting, yet it's only relevant for the first and last 2 episodes. Why even make Hirosei blind again at all? This just creates humongous plot holes for the show, or at the very least is extremely unrealistic. Again, I'm just so confused by this. I don't know what else to say. Hayami ends up being forced out of the village, but instead of leaving, the big racist grandpa comes and... Just kidding, Hirosei comes and saves her, and then angry grandpa gets arrested. More importantly though is Hirosei, because it turns out that he somehow reverted back to how he was when he was a kid. Yeah, so because of everything that's happened with Hayami's family, his mother, and then her leaving the village, his mind just went... So all these dramatic experiences reverted his brain back to when his mom was alive, and now he thinks Hayami is his mother now? What? What the fuck? Hirose and Hayami then moved to Tokyo since Hirose used to live there, which means he's more familiar with the area. The 2 of them lived like this for a few months, but then one day something super duper insane happens. Hayami and Hirose are walking home from the grocery store when all of a sudden Hayami walks onto a train track and... Once again, I have no idea what to say. Hayami walked onto a train track and pretty much committed... I can't take this seriously at all. It's so fucking stupid and silly. I know the reason Hayami did this was because it was the only way for Hirose to get his sight back. But even so, you didn't have to actually go ahead and die like this. Why wouldn't you just run to the other side or just jump out of the way quickly? You threw your whole life away for no good reason. It also doesn't help that we see her get hit by the train too. If it faded to white and we didn't see the train at all, then it would be more dramatic. But no, we do. We see her get hit by a fucking train, which just makes me think of... So yeah, she's dead. Hayami is fucking dead. We then get a time skip and see how everyone's been doing. Hinata is now the village chief and Hirose moved back to the village with his uncle. Everything seems normal, but then it turns out that the ghost girl Otoha is alive now since she got reincarnated, I think. She tells Hirose that she had to convince the spirit world to do something, and that something was... This is the 3rd time I'm saying this now, but I don't know what to say or even think of this. Hayami was able to come back from the dead because Otoha was able to convince the gods of the spirits to bring her back or something stupid like that. And now she's alive because obviously we can't end the anime with her being 6 feet under. Hirose and Hayami are both alive. Hirose can see, Hayami is liked by everyone, and they all lived happily ever after.
Like that's ever gonna happen.
What the fuck is this ending? First off, I thought Otoha was just part of Hirosei's imagination. He wasn't actually able to see anything the entire time, and it was all just in his head. But now you're telling me that Otoha was able to reincarnate somehow when it was also able to bring Hayami back from the dead too? How am I supposed to take any of this seriously? If Otoha was able to convince people to bring others back to life, then why didn't she come back all those years ago? Why is Hayami the only one who's able to come back? Why did she have to wait so many years to come back? Why does she look so much older despite being dead for multiple years? You can't just introduce all this bullshit at once at the very end of the show and expect me to believe it. Besides Hirose being able to see at the end of the first episode, there's nothing else in the show that includes this weird unexplained spirit magic. And let me remind you that Hirose wasn't actually able to see, so none of that spirit magic worked in the first place. Or actually, did it work? I have no fucking idea. These last couple minutes are just a gigantic clusterfuck. This ending is so stupid, it's bad, it's such an asshole, but it's also kind of funny too. I don't know if it's just me, but sometimes when I'm rewatching this scene, I think it's funny seeing Hayami being alive again, even though she should be... I genuinely have no idea what to think of this ending. Every time I watch and think about it, I feel something different. I'm happy that Hirose can see again, and I'm happy that Hayami is back, but at the same time, I'm also confused, angry, and disappointed. I've gone over endings that are great, good, mediocre, and just plain bad, but this is the first time that an ending has outright broken me. I genuinely can't say for sure what I think of it. I don't like it, I don't hate it, it's kinda funny, but also very disappointing too. The anime should have ended with the fake death of Hayami getting hit by the train. Hirose gains his sight back, he starts screaming and crying, the train passes by, but then it's revealed that Hayami was behind the train the entire time. The two of them hug, and then we get the same time skip, except Otaha is still dead because it's my ending. Fuck you. But yeah, that's how I would have ended it, and that would have been a lot better than this poo-poo caca ending. I could rant for another 30 minutes about this, but obviously I'm not going to, so let's move on to its characters real quick.
Bitch.
H2O's cast is alright. As mentioned, a large amount of the anime is centered around Hirose, Hayami, and Hinata, all of which are at the very least decent. A lot of its side characters are pretty forgettable, but thankfully they don't get much screen time. As for Hirose, he's sort of generic and pretty standard, although this is one of the rare times where I don't mind this. Hirose has been blind for many years, so now that he has, or at least thought he could see, he wants to do everything he can to help others around him, and I actually like that. He got his sight back, and in return he decides to help people, which is good. Also, I can't really call him that generic since he does go sicko mode and reverts back to that of a child, which is definitely something alright. He might not be great, but he doesn't suck either. He's okay. But you know who isn't okay? Hinata's goddamn grandfather. This motherfucker needs to be kicked down a flight of stairs. He literally manipulated everyone in the village into hating and hurting Hayami because he's a humongous piece of shit. He and everyone else can hate her family all they want, but don't get angry at her. She did nothing wrong. He also forces his granddaughter to do various things, so fuck him for that too. Seriously, this guy needs to
die in a fucking fire. Please.
Anyway, time for the waifu war, where I officially rank each girl from worst to best.
Hello there.
Kathleen Kennedy is the current president of Lucasfilms, and she's the main reason why Star Wars sucks now. Despite not appearing in H2O Footprints in the Sand, she still deserves the bottom spot because I said so. Otoha's the ghost spirit girl that talks with Hirose. She's fun, although she always felt like an afterthought and didn't really feel that important either. I feel like she can be removed and not much would really change. It's revealed later on that she's actually the ghost of Hinata's sister that died many years ago, so that's something, I guess. Besides that, she's cute and funny, but that's really it.
Shut the hell up, bitch.
Yui's a rich girl that's also sort of a
bitch.
She calls Hayami a cockroach, which is pretty mean, but I guess it's better than calling her the N-word. Yui wants to be treated as a princess, which is funny, although no one seems to care for her, which is sad. She does befriend Hayami later on, so that's spicy goodness like a boss.
I got food.
Hinata, or I guess Hotaru, is the granddaughter of the big, mean, stinky, fat, old, grumpy, wumpy village chief. Her sister Hinata died when she was young, but because she was so talented and loved by everyone, her grandpa forced her to become Hinata, which is weird. Hotaru then changed her name to Hinata, and for many years she tricked everyone into thinking she was the real Hinata. That sucks for her since her sister died and she's been forced to do all these things her grandpa made her do. But you know whose life sucked even more?
One!
Hayami is one of the few tsunderes to ever be best girl in a harem. She is mainly Hirose, especially at first, but there's a good reason for that. She's been bullied and hated by everyone in the village for years, so it must be very difficult for her to trust and befriend others. And even when she starts to like Hirose, Hinata kisses him right in front of her, so that must have sucked the shit out of a snake's slimy asshole. Anyway, I feel bad for Hayami. She did not deserve to be treated like this. Even though the ending gives my brain a JFK moment, I'm at least happy that Hayami got a happy ending. But it's still really dumb.
Bitch.
Besides episode 8 and its ending, the worst part of the anime has to be its art. The anime was animated by Studio Zex, or as I like to call them, Studio Sex. Unfortunately, Studio Sex is not known for having good animation, and not even great shows for that matter. H2O doesn't look terrible, but it mainly looks so bland and generic. When I think of drama light novel designs, these are exactly what I think of, and I don't mean that in a good way. These designs aren't horrible, but again, they're so generic and basic. If you showed me anyone besides Hirose with his eyes closed, I would not be able to tell you that they were from H2O. Some scenes and shots look like shit, but for the most part, it just looks passable at best. So yeah, the show looks sorta bad, but nothing offensively bad.
Bitch.
As for its soundtrack, it's actually good. I listened to it all and there were a good handful of tracks that were memorable. I probably wouldn't listen to it again, but overall it definitely gets a pass. It just kinda sucks that the opening and ending themes are pretty bland. Also, there's no dub, so that's...
Bitch.
Well, that was H2O Paw Prints in the Litter Box, and it was
Okay.
Even though there's some aspects that aren't great, especially its final episode, everything else is good enough and makes up for its shortcomings. My opinion of it has slightly gone down, but I'm still glad I rewatched the series. H2O gets a light recommendation, which is why I'm giving it a 6.51 out of 10. Well, that's going to do it for this video. If you liked it, you can leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, or even support me on Patreon. Link down below. Also, be sure to subscribe for my 7-hour review of the greatest anime and manga of all time, Heaven's Lost Property, because that'll be out eventually.